A little over 2 years ago, I sold all my arcade 1-up cabinets, and I took that money and I bought a used multicade. I did a video talking about that cabinet and other options that are out there for people wanting something similar in price but better build quality. Now in that video, I said I wasn't sure if I was going to keep that cabinet for 6 months or 6 years. And as it turns out, I came almost in the middle of that prediction. So in this video, I'm going to show you this new cabinet that I purchased, and I'm also going to talk about the reasons why I sold my previous one. And at the end of that video, I'm also going to do just a little update on a couple of things that I've added to this game room in addition to this cabinet right here. So stick around to the end for that. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. So here it is. This is a Gameroom Solutions 32-inch two-player kit. It's called the 32-inch because it's 32 inches wide, 32 inches deep, and 71 inches tall. But also the maximum size monitor that will fit is 32 inches, which is what this has. It's got IL buttons, Sanwell JLW 4 8-way sticks, an Ultimark trackball, a Suzo Hap coin door, 2 Pile 6-inch speakers, and a Kinter amp. Around back, there's 2 access doors, one at the top and one at the bottom. Running everything is an i5 gaming PC with an NVIDIA 1650 GTX Super graphics card, which is plenty of power for what I need it to run. Because of the 3/4 inch MDF, this cabinet is pretty heavy, around 185 pounds before anything added, so the approximate weight is well over 200 pounds and very solid. It's got chrome T-molding. While not mimicking the original Tapper's black T-molding, it does make the cabinet pop. It's also running Technoparrot, so in the future I could add retro shooter or send in light guns and properly play those newer arcade shooters. And in my opinion, the vinyl Tapper graphics are really sick, and it's very fitting to have a Budweiser themed cabinet when I was born and raised in the St. Louis area, and St. Louis is the home of Budweiser. So you might be asking yourself, well, if you enjoyed your old cabinet so much, why did you sell it and purchase this one? Well, that's an interesting story. So when I did that video a couple years ago on my previous cabinet, I mentioned some things that I wasn't too crazy about. So the cabinet design, it had the marquee actually sloping upwards, and then the control panel was then slanting downwards. Both of those things I just didn't like. I also didn't have a trackball or a spinner, which is something that I wanted either or, and it didn't have a functioning coin door, even though that's something that I don't need. It's just something aesthetically that I like on my arcades. But the main thing, the biggest issue that I had with this cabinet was the joysticks. Now, you couldn't change the tops, which I guess is fine. It was stuck with bat tops, but you could not change the gates in any way. I would have had to swap them out for a whole different setup, which again wouldn't have cost that much. You know, it was great for fighting games, but I could not play properly games like Burger Time, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, any game that really needs precise movements in 4 directions, I could not do. So with all those things combined, I just didn't want to swap those out and then still have these other things that I wasn't crazy about. I just decided, you know what, I think it's time to get something a little bit better that more suits my needs. Now the interesting thing is that when I went to pick up my previous cabinet and I went to Zach's house, this cabinet right here was in his basement. You can actually see it in the video, and I remember being kind of drawn to it. You know, here I am picking up this other one, but there's this one that I liked better. Now at the time he had just finished that build. It wasn't for sale at that moment. He had just said that it was a much more labor intensive build and a lot more money went into that. So it's probably not something that I would even be interested in. So I forgot about it. I moved on, and shortly after I got home and set mine up, I noticed that he had put it on Facebook Marketplace.
Come on, man!
Now the price was something that I wouldn't have wanted to pay back then. It just wasn't in that range that I wanted to be in. So I just put it out of my mind. But after all this stuff and kind of outgrowing the one that I had, I reached out to Zach and I said, hey man, is that Tapper cabinet still available? And he said, well, it is. It's not on Marketplace anymore, but it is still for sale. And I asked him to give me a price, and he did, and it was more than fair, a price that I basically couldn't pass up. So I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to sell my other one, and I'll reach back out to you when that happens. So that's what I did. It took me about 2.5 weeks or so to sell my old cabinet. Now, the really cool thing is that when I sold that cabinet, I actually made $50 more than what I paid for it. I didn't put a single dime into it other than the price that I paid, and I end up getting $50 more to put towards this one, which is something that is kind of unheard of these days, you know, especially if you're owning arcade one-ups. A lot of times people put all these upgrades into those things and then you don't get hardly any of that back out of it. I mean, I'm well aware of it. When I sold mine, I took a hit on all those and I only made minor improvements. People, they don't really care about all those improvements that you did to it. They just see it as, well, I could go to Walmart or Best Buy and buy the same thing. They really don't see the value in all those modifications. So I didn't put a single dime into that arcade. I enjoyed it, and then I actually made money on top of that. Now, the bad thing about this one was, when we went to pick up my old one, it was not as wide, it was actually not as deep, and it didn't weigh as much. So going up Zach's narrow stairs and out his basement door into the driveway was doable with me and a friend to load it on a truck. This one here is a lot heavier, and it's a lot bigger, it's a lot wider, and Zach told me that I don't think it's gonna go up the stairs. There was really no way to get this out of his house without damaging the cabinet as well as his walls. So this had to be taken apart. Now, I wasn't sure how much we were going to take apart. It ended up we actually had to take it completely apart. It had to be flat packed into my car, which kind of got me a little bit nervous, but you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. We just, you know, took the sides off and then one by one took each piece out. It's a cam lock system. It's not that difficult. And then loaded it in my car, brought everything down piece by piece, and then put it back together pretty much in reverse, and it all went pretty well. But that's the cool thing about this. It's very modular. As big as it is, as solid as this thing is, it's still modular. So if you have issues with getting it, you know, into your house, whether it's upstairs or whether it's downstairs, it's still very doable. I could take this thing completely apart if I ever chose to sell it, and then the next person would not have to worry about carrying this thing out as is and get it into their third floor or their basement or whatever. But I mean, I'm really enjoying this over my previous one. It's pretty much better in every single way. You know, it's nice to have an even bigger control panel. So when I have a friend over, which has already happened, and we play this, I mean, I had plenty of room before on my old one, but this one's got even more. So that's just a really nice bonus. Just been so fun to play a lot of these games that I could play before on my old one, but I couldn't play them properly. Now, all I got to do is just lift up the control panel, make a quarter turn, and just adjust the gate per game. It only takes a few seconds, and the difference is just, it's unbelievable. It's like night and day. My scores have improved. Just that alone, I'm so glad that I bought this. Now, as far as changes that I want to make to this, there's not really that many. Right now, it's very much turnkey. I don't have to do a whole lot at all. The marquee, I'm not too crazy about. If you look at the original, it's a lot more like a stained glass look. So because this is much narrower, some of that green stained glass is actually behind this frame here. So this is something that maybe I might want to call up, I don't know, Zabos or somebody and possibly get this replaced out. That wouldn't cost too much. Also, the T-molding, while this chrome really makes this cabinet pop, it is not true to the original Tapper machine that had actually black. I don't know if I'm going to replace that. This is done very well. It does make the cabinet kind of unique. It's not an expensive thing to do. It's just, I've done T-molding before. I'm not a real big fan of it. This has got a lot of different curves and things. I could do it. I just don't know if something is already done well, if I want to just take it off, you know, if it would really change the look of it that much. I also have a couple of speaker covers that I plan on putting over those. They were just extra, so I just got to drill the holes and put those up. I just haven't done it yet. But the big thing that I would like to add, and I'd like to get, you know, your opinion on this, let me know in the comments. I would like to put a brass foot rail below the coin door and make this look more like the real Tapper machine. I've seen the parts on Kegworks. It wouldn't cost that much, around $100 shipped. And I don't know if it's something that would clash with this chrome to have that polished brass foot rail, but I think it would look really cool. So if you think that's something I ought to do, or if you think it would look stupid, let me know in the comments. But overall, I'm really happy with this build, and I think Zach did an amazing job with it. Like I said before, I don't think there's too many things that I would have changed, maybe just a couple, but he did an amazing job, and I just think it looks really awesome in this game room. I mean, this room was never meant to be one of those mini arcades. I really wanted just, you know, a multicade or something that does a lot of things and doesn't take up too much space and have room for a pinball machine or something else. I do not like the look of these mini arcades. I mean, this room would hold 20 or 30 if I really wanted to go all the way around and in the center. That is not what I want to do with this room. It's not something I ever wanted to do. I had a couple in my room before, and then I had a partycade on the wall. I do think that arcade one-ups have a place. I think they are decor. I've said it 100 times. I think they look fine in a space where you want to give off a certain vibe. But when you go more than one or even two, it starts to be, in my opinion, a little tacky. Again, if that's something that you're into, that's fine. It's just not something that I was ever going to do. I was never going to get rid of anything else in this room. But, I just feel like a lot of these guys that are in this arcade one-up space, that just live and breathe arcade one-up, I feel like they're more concerned with the room and how it looks than actually playing those machines. They just want to walk in there and they want to see all those machines on, and I get it. You always wanted an arcade as a kid, but to have all these little smaller arcades that are sandwiched together, that have these small screens and just don't really fit an average height person, I just kind of find it a little silly. And I don't know, it's just something that I don't personally like. But yeah, if that's something that you're into, that's great. I just want people to know that you can get a kit like this, which is $750 for just the cabinet itself. Now, obviously, you're going to spend another $800 to $1,000 depending on what you want to put into it, whether you have Game Room Solutions or Rec Room Masters or whoever source all that stuff out, or you do it yourself if you've got it. That's up to you. And you can get that cost down considerably. And here's something to think about. So just think, these guys that have all these mini arcades, they buy these things usually at retail, not always, but usually. So you're spending, say, $500 for an arcade one-up. They then replace the monitor because it's not good enough. They replace the marquee because it's not good enough. They replace the speakers because they're not good enough, or they add an amp or whatever. It's always customary to swap out the sticks and the buttons because everybody knows that those are shit. If there's not a coin door, they put one in, whether it's fake or it's real. The seamless risers, every one of these guys now are doing seamless risers. They swap out their control decks from 4-player to 2-player, or from 2 to 4, or whatever. A lot of times they'll even wrap the cabinet. So they change everything. I mean, literally everything. And that's even before adding a Pi or a PC. So if you're gonna buy one for $500 plus tax, or even with shipping, depending on where you get it from, I mean, all of that stuff just adds up and adds up and adds up. And you're easily $1,000, $1,200, probably minimum for one of those builds. And at the end of the day, it's still a very small, lightweight arcade one-up that can't even play two people properly. I mean, I don't get it. Why not just buy a kit like this? You're still not going to be very far off in price with one of these than you are a heavily modded arcade one-up. And to me, that's just insane. The average person would want this over a modded arcade one-up. Again, if you're fine with one of those, that's great. There's many people out there that mod one-ups and they have just maybe one or two and they're heavily modded and they love them. I personally still think that they're just too small, even if they're modded, to really enjoy. You can put the best parts in it possible, but it's still this tiny lightweight thing, and the maximum screen you can go is like, what, 19 inches? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But this thing does a lot. It does a lot. Yes, it's still missing a spinner. I don't have a control stick, nothing like that. But this is still a very capable cabinet, and it costs less than 3 arcade one-ups. So I'm very, very, very happy with it. Like I said before, my old one, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it 6 months or 6 years. It would take something significantly better than this one, and it would have to be priced very reasonable for me to part with this one. All right, so there you go. That is a look at the new Game Room Edition. So what I want to do now is show you a couple of things that I've added to this game room in the 3 years that I've done a game room tour. So if you want to stick around for that, definitely do so. I think you're going to enjoy what I've added to this space. All right, I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. So here's where the new cabinet is. That's where the old one was, just takes up a tad bit more space. To this left is where my ALP used to be, and as you can see, I've got my stools there because I don't usually sit on stools anymore to play this. That was all for my arcade 1-ups. This is where my ALP was. I have not decided what to do with this space. I kind of put one of these Govee lamps there for now, just to kind of get some cool lighting in here. So I haven't figured out what I want, if I want a real pinball or a virtual pinball. All right, so moving over to this right corner, this all right here is relatively new. Now, I think I had mentioned before that I had recently got into vinyl, and I bought a turntable and this small stand here. Thought that no, I would never fill this up in a very short time. You can see this is full. I even then bought one of these little crates, and it is now almost full. So I do not advise getting into vinyl. It is a serious money trap. It is fun, but yeah, I mean, it's taken up wall space because I just decided I want to display some albums. But this little nook, even though it's cool, vinyl's a bad habit. So I'm trying to curb it a little bit here lately. And then over here, this was not here before. This is now. I've shown this in some videos, but not really talked about it. This is a little retro station that I added because I just wanted another CRT. I cannot play light gun games on the 40-inch Sony tube because of, I'll talk about that maybe in a future video. This one is a smaller 20-inch Sony Trinitron CRT. I love this little guy. And this is where I mainly play my ColecoVision. I also have my NES and my Super NES in here. These are both hooked up. So yeah, that's that. And this little stand was free. Somebody was giving it away. I love the retro look of this thing. It's kind of like an old, I don't know, microwave cart or just an old TV stand from the mid early 80s, you know. I mean, it's just an awesome little setup that fits perfectly there. And I definitely recommend getting multiple CRTs. I may make a video on CRTs coming up. So yeah, that's about it. Added a different couch. So yeah, the room really is, it's coming together, and really like the way it's turned out.
That rug really tied the room together, did it not?
Fucking A.
Alright guys, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. Let me know what you think of this Tapper cabinet. Is it fine the way it is? Should I add something? Do you think it's a piece of shit? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you learned something or you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up and turn the notification bell so you know when I upload videos like this one. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.